Hello everybody, this is Manu-S and welcome to another Eternal Brews video series. Been a while since the last deck tech and also a while since the last Eternal Brews, but since there's not a whole lot of new developments going on in terms of competitive decks, I figured I'll share a really cool and decently competitive brew with you guys that I played a while ago and really enjoyed, and finally came around to making a video on it. So let's take a look. Alright, here we go. This is the deck. I called it Hooru Chancellor. It's basically a Hooru Tribute deck, sort of built around Ironfist Chancellor and secondarily also End of Hostilities. And yeah, it plays like a really cool, grindy mid-range deck that can generate a lot of value and really powerful board states, punching through a lot of things. So let's take a look. First of all, we have 27 creatures. For Ironfist Chancellor, like I mentioned, the ways to get tribute on him are Whispering Wind, Nocturnal Observer, and Torgov discarding a creature just dying in combat, or playing a Chairman's Contract and milling a creature, especially on turn 2. This is really sweet, playing a contract on turn 2 just to mill a creature and play a 2-power 4/4 on turn 2 is super powerful. Then we have for Whispering Wind, just a very nice card. As I already mentioned, a tribute outlet, a nice way to generate some value, either by discarding Privilege of Rank and then finding a Torgov or bigger and drawing a bunch of cards for free. It also is a flyer, so it attacks pretty well. We have Hurler to have like an inherent 2-for-1 that we then can turn into better cards with Whispering Wind. It also is a very good carrier or Copperhall bracers that I'll talk about in a moment. Just does a bunch of really good things here. Then we have Yennefer Merchant. I kind of went back and forth on Merchant in this deck, but yeah, it is probably fine to have it. The 3-drop slot is a bit gummed up, and Merchant felt like it doesn't do that much for the deck because the deck's pretty yeah, linear and kind of cares more about its own game plan than yeah, just kind of reacting to the opponent as much, and it's not that good at helping you with your own game plan compared to in some other decks. But yeah, it's still pretty decent. It gets you the Forced Permafrost, it gets you a Vision of Austerity against cookbooks and stuff, or obelisks. Second, I forgot to mute Facebook. It also, yeah, just deals with a bunch of problematic things. Then we have Lightning Storm, usually better than Hailstorm as a market card because it's cheaper, it's easier to play, and it usually kills everything we need to kill when we get it from the market against Scream Aggro, Skycrag, Praxis tokens, for example. There's really not a lot of decks that have cards that care about Hailstorm more than they care about Lightning Storm. Then we have an Unseal just against like Partial and other problematic big spells, random stuff that might come up. And then a Gleaming Shield. This card is surprisingly good. I had like up to 3 in the main at times. I just decided when I put Merchant back in to only put 1 in the market because you gotta find room for Merchant somehow. And yeah, Gleaming Shield, since it is a bit expensive at 7 and a bit situational, this is where it's best off if you have a Merchant, because then you can just get it whenever you need it. But basically giving the target Aegis right away, and then also making a copy of that unit. For example, just imagine a Torgov that is already a 7/8 with a Gleaming Shield. It becomes an 8/11, and you get another 7/8 with Aegis, which is super powerful, and a lot of control decks just kind of lose at that point. Also, obviously, Gleaming Shield recursion with Chancellor is super brutal in the late game. Just does a lot of surprisingly good things in the deck. Sorry about that. Then we have Nocturnal Observer, pretty important for mid-game tribute stuff. Also great synergy with Privilege of Rank, letting you draw extra cards. The double card from Hurler plus Snowball is also great to cycle here and turn into useful cards, making this effectively a 0 cost draw 2, which is amazing. Valkyrie Enforcer, not much explanation needed, just a great threat, great utility, great copy target, great everything basically. Then we have Torgov. The deck's actually pretty good at making Torgov at 7-8, which is where he's actually really great as a 4-drop then. The deck also benefits a lot from his looting ability, because that's another source to get tribute for End of Hostilities or Chancellor, for example. And like I said, already a great Gleaming Shield target. And then just Hurler, because the deck can have issues with Aegis, and the Snowball is great for that. Also great early game interaction, kills a bunch of annoying utility creatures, and it's also 2 cards in 1 for all the looting effects, and also happens to be, one half of it also happens to be a creature, so if you discard it, trigger tribute, which is, doing a lot of things for 1 card. Then we have the remaining 3 Permafrost with the Force in the Market, just good, cheap, efficient removal, particularly nice with End of Hostilities in the deck, because then you can just lock down one of the big guys and copy it while it's still under Permafrost. Some additional removal help in Vanquisher's Blade, because the 4 Vanquish are not usually enough these days, plus Vanquisher's Blade suppresses Haunting Scream and other recursion type stuff, and happens to be another really nice late game engine with a Chancellor. And for Copperhall Braces, I initially tried the deck without, and constantly felt like I'm kind of just a bit too behind and get run over, and Braces gave the deck a really nice proactive angle. You can just kind of slap it on a turn 2 Whispering Wind and go to town, for example, or turn 4 on a turn 3 Valkyrie Enforcer and that sort of stuff. Applies a lot of pressure. It also ramps you into faster End of Hostilities, or lets you do multiple things in a turn faster. And it's also obviously amazing with Chancellor, because then you just have an immune board every turn on your turn for 6 power, and you keep making more of these 6/2s, or even 8 force, which is incredible. So yeah, the card's actually really good. Then we have 2 Seek Power. The deck doesn't need that much power, because it has 4 privilege and a lot of ways to discard it, like 27 plus the 4 privileges. So only 2 Seek Power at the moment. For Vanquish, like I mentioned, just the go-to removal, one of the best removals in the format right now. And for End of Hostilities, how good and versatile Privilege of Rank is with all the discard outlets I already mentioned. And yeah, End of Hostilities is another big tribute payoff card. A way to just run away with the game and overwhelm the opponent, copying either a big Torgov or Enforcer, or just one of their big threats. Then we have 25 power. The unusual thing is basically 2 Chairman's Contract, where you probably would expect something like 2 Primal Sigil. The contracts are really nice for multiple reasons. You can mill a Privilege of Rank and then just draw 2 Justice Sigils for free. It can allow for early tribute with Chancellor, and it also can help you have additional ways to turn an End of Hostilities on once you have 6 power in a critical turn. Because you can't always have Observer or Whispering Wind going, and having extra ways is really nice, and it gives you a bit of a power draw early on with turn 2 Chancellor as a 4/4. If you run into too many color issues, I recommend just cutting them for Primal Sigils again. I'm not 100% sure on them, but they have been really good. The main question is basically if the influence is still good enough. I think it should be, but I'm not 100% sure. And yeah, that's the deck. It's really cool, really fun to play, and surprisingly strong. It's actually a pretty solid deck. I won more than I lost with it, but it's not quite on par with like the top decks, which is why I didn't put it in top decks or contenders, where there are more high quality and consistent decks that can beat up on the metagame. Well, this is just a fine deck that does really cool things and fun, but I wouldn't take it to a tournament over something else, for example. But yeah, you can climb with it on ladder and you can have a lot of fun with it on ladder. Alright, that's it for the deck tech. As usual, we're gonna hop into some games in Masters and see how we're doing. So before we do that, make sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content, and hit the like button if you enjoy the kind of deck techs that I do. And if you want to support us, make sure to consider whitelisting YouTube and EternalTitans.com, or just turn off your ad block to help support our content. That would be amazing. But now on to the games. See you in a moment.